Nintendo gives us an accidental lesson in patience. PSN is getting updated with a bunch of new free stuff. And there's some rumors floating around about Final Fantasy X-3. So grab yourself a beverage. This is your week in gaming. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Thank you very much for joining me again. This is Aliside as always. So this week we have a couple of interesting pieces of news. It was sort of slow due to the holidays, but there were a couple pieces of news that came out, so let's get into it. So as you may or may not be aware, if you picked up a new 3DS or Nintendo product this week, they're having a ton of problems with their network. So from what I've seen, there's been a lot of complaints about the eShop being unaccessible. Nintendo IDs aren't being created properly. It's just a whole big mess for Nintendo. What I would like to point out is this is not the first time that this has happened with a current gen console. When the PS4 and the Xbox One released, they both had massive network issues as well. And even though Nintendo is an established network, and these are consoles that have been around for quite a while, I don't think they were prepared or expecting quite the flood of new users that are trying to access their services. So I haven't been able to find any solid sales numbers from this past week, or the past couple weeks anyway, regarding how many new 3DSs, 2DSs, and Wii U's and Wii's that there are floating around out there. But I would guess that it must be a massive number just due to the size and the load that the Nintendo network has been having. So because of these problems, Nintendo's actually taken the eShop down for the next 24 hours, I believe, in hopes that they can fix this problem and maybe allow more users access it simultaneously. So have a little bit of patience. I'm sure everything will calm down eventually, and I would give it probably a couple more days before things cool down enough where you can enjoy your new toys. So where one company was having troubles with their network, another is actually thriving and doing quite well. So Sony announced this week their next wave of instant game library games for PS Plus members, and we've got a couple of pretty nifty titles coming our way for free if you've subscribed to the PS Plus. For the PS4, we're getting an interesting little survival game called Don't Starve. It's kind of a 2D randomly generated sort of thing. I'm kind of excited to play it since it takes a couple elements from like Minecraft and Terraria, kind of mixes them all together. On the PS3, I actually had to read this a couple times just to make sure that I was reading it properly. On the PS3, we've got BioShock Infinite, DMC Devil May Cry, and Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. Now, the reason I had to reread that twice is because BioShock Infinite is Game of the Year material, and it was only released a couple months ago. You're able to access that for free now if you have a subscription, so I think that's pretty awesome. And coming to the PS Vita, we've got Smart As and Worms Battle Islands, which might be interesting. The Smart As is actually a brain training type game, and Worms is a strategy type game if you're at all familiar with the franchise. So I'm looking forward to at least trying out the Don't Starve on my new PS4. I don't have a PS3, unfortunately, so I can't jump into those other games, but they're definitely worth checking out, obviously. BioShock Infinite has quite a bit of critical acclaim this year, so there's that. And my last bit of news is Final Fantasy related. I know I talk about Final Fantasy a lot on this show. As a matter of fact, I just put up a video regarding Yoshitaka Amano's The Sky. You should probably go check that out too. Now this one isn't quite news, and I usually don't like dabbling in rumors and speculation all that much, but this one was just too interesting to approach and talk about. So, series scenario writer Kazushige Nojima has stated that there is a possibility of a Final Fantasy X-3 coming our way. At least he stated that he has a lot of interest in doing so. Even though he has a lot of interest, he says that there's going to have to be a lot of interest from us, the consumer, too, for that to become a solid thing. Now, personally, I wouldn't be too surprised if it did come to fruition, seeing as Final Fantasy X, the original one, is the second best-selling Final Fantasy of all time, having sold about 8.2 million copies. And Final Fantasy X-2 is number 7 on that list, I believe, having sold around 3 million. The interest is probably there, honestly, I would rather them stick all of that effort and time into Final Fantasy 15 to make sure that that title comes off without a hitch and is actually playable and fun and great, and maybe restores Final Fantasy to the pedestal that it was once placed upon, but has sort of fallen down recently because Square's been a bunch of dummies in regards to mobile iOS games and other crap like that. What was I talking about? So there's that. Any new news regarding that I will be sure to follow, since I am keenly interested in that series. And even though I wasn't too invested in Final Fantasy X-2, I would be interested to see what they might have to do with X-3. So I think that about covers what I wanted to talk about today. As always, if I did happen to miss any part of these three major stories, please be sure to let me know down below in the comments. I always like to hear from you guys. Or if there was some other news story that maybe flew over my head or under my radar, let me know about that too. I can always bring it up next week. If this is the first time that you're joining me for This Week in Gaming, please be sure you subscribe so you can come back and join me next week. I always update on weekends with the news, and I've kind of fallen off the wagon recently, but I actually update with Let's Plays and that sort of thing during the week. So that should do it. Until next time, I'm Aliside. Thanks for joining me, and this has been Your Week in Gaming.